crazy is this: 70% of millionaires in America are self-made. They didn't come from money. Sometimes you get numb to the fact that you think everybody's making money and everybody's successful.
It looks like that a lot of the times.
Everybody started in your position, and these things take decades to do. There's no overnight success, and if it does happen overnight, it'll leave overnight.
What did our parents get right when it came to money? What did they do that was wrong?
So our parents, they have almost like a scarcity mindset, which is, I need to keep more. We're more of the abundant mindset. It's a lot easier to make more money than to save more.
You serve the top 1% of earners. What are the systems that your wealthiest clients implement that the normal person wouldn't even know existed?
The difference between the 1% and 99% is their psychology and how they look at things. The capability or your level of success is dependent on how much stress or pressure that you can handle. The ability to adapt, the ability to innovate, the ability to work with speed. These are talents that you don't have to come from wealth to be kind, to be polite, to have good manners, to be ethical, to show up on time. These are traits that if you have them as an individual, you're going to succeed in the entrepreneurial space.
Someone making $50,000 a year, he's going to be like, I want to be in that top 1% of earners. What are they doing that I can do?
Let's say you're making $50,000 a year and you have maybe a couple $100 on a monthly basis. I'd highly recommend investing in your
money and finances. For most of us, is a foreign language. We don't really understand it like we should. And part of the reason is growing up in immigrant families, the immigrant mindset is to survive, not to invest and grow wealth. For a lot of us, our families were never in those high earners, top 1% bracket. So that's why Khalil is here. Khalil is in this very unique position where his job is based off of serving the 1% of earners in America. You will not be able to find a conversation like this. You will not find a person that is so deeply connected to those top 1% of earners and is willing to tell the secrets. Not only that, Khalil is the son of immigrants himself. So he understands how to implement those rules and those strategies from the top 1% back into our community. So this is a conversation that every single person you know should listen to if the goal is to build wealth and break that generational curse and that generational poverty that a lot of us lived in. I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day and giving this podcast to listen. I wanted to also remind you that the only way this will ever grow and I can keep doing this conversation is with your support. And the free and easy way to support this podcast is to subscribe to the channel, like the episode, and comment and let me know what you learned from what Khalil said in this episode. And with that being said, let's get the show started.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى
طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب
مدينة القدس العربية.
Khalil, welcome back.
Am I the first repeated episode?
You're the first repeated episode.
What an honor. What an honor.
It's you see how I always start with asking the person when they look in the mirror, who do they see? Last time when you were here, you said that it was a very unique twist to it where you introduced yourself through your name. And you said, Khalil, my father named me Khalil and Khalil means friend. And Prophet Abraham's nickname was Khalilullah. And you brought this very unique twist to like introducing yourself. If you had to introduce yourself in a different way, or I don't want to say different way because in essence, that's still who you are, a friend. But if you wanted to add to that, what would you add?
The only thing I would add is a servant. Especially lately, I feel like the older I get, and I believe the more successful you become, you just feel like it's your calling to serve. And as we've grown through business, we're serving people, we're serving clients. So, and not just that, like through your success, it's so important to just continue to serve and to help those who are in a position that you're not in. So I think that's the only thing I would add is just more so of a servant.
Mm. It is interesting that you've been having responsibilities for a very long time, but in a public sense, that responsibility of, I want to serve, I want to give back, it comes later. And I just wish we can have it implemented in our heads a little sooner. Always being a servant, wherever you, if you're a college student, not saying I just don't have the means to serve right now. Like, there's always ways to serve.
There's definitely always ways to serve, and I think it's just part of your identity. And there's a big, like, serving by doing is much better than serving by talking. So you don't want to talk about how much you serve. So let's, like, make that clear. When I say to serve, I'm just sharing my progression in life, where I always knew in my core that we're here to serve, period, and to help others in need. Not just that, like, from a philanthropic perspective, you see a lot of wealthy people, they become philanthropists as they get older as well. It's because they've accomplished what is required in order to be philanthropic. Now, there's two reasons for that. Number one, you can, as a student, serve. You don't have to have the money. So you can serve through your time, through your volunteer efforts, through action, which is almost greater than money, right? Sometimes it's easy just to give money. But at the same time, money is required by many organizations. So a lot of successful business owners or entrepreneurs have to make the money first. And I feel like once they make the money first, now they're in a position where they can serve. And not only can they serve, but they can do it in a very effective way. And I'm speaking from a business perspective as well. So there's a lot of, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but a lot of high net worth business owners or clientele or individuals who eventually, once they've progressed in their business, they've earned a lot of money, now strategically they can create foundations and control where their charitable contributions are going, and also get the benefit of tax savings. That's why you see a lot of also wealthy families who have charitable foundations, and their families are on the board, and these are private foundations, but they do help many organizations, many that are less fortunate or those in need. But strategically, yes, they're doing good, they're serving, but at the same time, they're benefiting, and which there should be nothing wrong with that. If anything, the fact that the tax code encourages you to be charitable, whether it's through monetary donations, whether it's through stock, there's a lot of options out there that do benefit the wealthy. And these are the things that I uncover, that I've always known. When I first started studying accounting and wanting to have my own practice, I had a specific avatar, a specific audience that I wanted to serve, right? And those are the ones. So they say solve rich people problems. If you can solve rich people problems, you'll always be in business, because they tend to know how things work, especially when it comes to money. So from my perspective, it's just seeing what works and presenting it to the public. That's why we call our firm Commonwealth. It's taking what the wealthy do, what works, and now spreading that through education, through knowledge, through experience for the general public.
Before we touch on that, I wanted to, there's something that you said that I feel like is very important. You said when you serve and you tell people that you serve and you do it out and about, you kind of like to take a different approach than that, like serving without anyone seeing. Do you think serving publicly pollutes the serving?
So when I say serve, it comes from a place of humility, right? So it's not telling people what to do or saying, we serve others. But if you look at it from the outside in, and you look at it from a business owner's perspective, if you own a restaurant, you are serving. If you are a lawyer, a medical professional, a banker, a real estate agent, you are serving. You're serving your customers. You're serving your audience. You're serving your family. So that's what I mean by serve. From our perspective, we are serving our clients in navigating the complexities of the tax code or helping them scale their business. So that's what I mean by serve. So everybody is a servant. But if you add a spiritual element to being a servant and saying, hey, is this why we're here? Is this what our purpose is? To help others and serve others? That's where my passion and my purpose, I feel like, lies, because that's what gets me out of bed. Knowing that, yes, we're helping others, we're serving, but we're also making money. This is business at the end of the day, right? It's just, it could be a win-win situation. So I think if business owners or individuals looked at it from that perspective, why not have it be a win-win situation,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But in addition to that, I am of the belief that what you do in private is more rewarded than what you do in public. And I think there's a real power to that. For example, I know of a person who donated, let's say, $1 million to a school district, right? This individual wears like Wrangler jeans and is like super low key, right? The guy owns private jets and stuff. So like nobody knows that, and he actually donated that money anonymously. So for me, I look at that, I'm like, man, for you doing something at that level and not even putting your name to it, like only you know that, right? That's a power move.
And you would only know that because you're his accountant, and it does show.
I feel like the more you grow, the more successful you become, the more private you become, right? So like in my nature in general, so like for example, we're dealing with social security numbers, we're dealing with addresses, we're dealing with marital status, we're dealing with dependents, investments, money. You have to be a trusted individual for people to work with you, right? So your reputation matters, and I believe your reputation on a personal level is why people do business with you.
Okay.
So if you personally aren't an honest person, or don't have integrity, or aren't trustworthy or confidential, how can people work with you? Maybe I take it a little bit more serious than others do, but that's my philosophy on that. So, but as you continue to grow or be surrounded by very successful, 1% of your clients or ourselves, or just coming across people from all walks of life, different parts of the country, it expands your horizon. So I feel like as your horizon expands, as you experience different types of people or different ways that people are making money, sometimes you get numb to the fact that you think everybody's making money and everybody's successful. So you forget the struggle.
It looks like that a lot of the times.
It looks like it depending on your perspective. So if you're around that 24/7, sometimes that's all you know. That could be a good thing, but I do believe it's important to also see the other side and know that people are struggling, and to try to uplift others. But in addition to that, I do believe that the more you experience, the more individuals you meet, the more interactions that you have, the more that you see, especially when it comes to money and success and the ways that people are building and creating and providing while at the same time they're making money, you look at that and I believe your mindset shifts to the fact that anybody can do this, right? But at the same time, you feel like people want to, like I say, money talks, wealth whispers. So the wealthy try to be a little bit more private, try to be a little low key, because at the end of the day, sometimes more money, more problems. And I see that a lot more, and I just feel like you're limited to the experiences that you have within your own circle or within your own bubble or within your own community. And it's so important to kind of look past that.
The thing with, you said if you're surrounded by that all the time, for a lot of immigrant families, we were never really surrounded with that. A lot of them came here. Your family probably is the same. They come here from zero and they build their way up. So we never had that financial education. Money is a foreign language to a lot of us. And from what you've seen, what did our parents get right when it came to money? But what did they do that was wrong when it came to them teaching us about money?
There are a lot of immigrant communities in the U.S. who are some of the most successful communities. So if you look at like the top 10 most successful immigrant ethnicities or ethnicities in the U.S., you tend to find that the Indo, Arab, Asian, Hispanic communities, these are like almost at the top. And a lot of the reason why is because they come in like I say, survival mode. So they only know, like they take on the greatest risk. And by doing that, they have almost like a scarcity mindset, which is, I need to keep more. Okay, so our parents and the immigrant families that we, cater to, you're talking first, second, third generation, their parents were all about scarcity. We need to keep more, we need to spend less, which they did a great job at that. And a lot of them are very educated, medical professionals, real estate investors. Like, we see it. Very successful, and I have a lot of respect for so many different communities. And you see patterns as well, especially in the Indo-Pac community, especially in the Asian community. You see these trends. Now, our parents, the right thing they did was the scarcity. Keep more. They had so many kids. And then you ask yourself, how did they survive? How did they spend? I mean, so many children, college, vehicles, and they had like blue collar jobs. Like, how did they do it, right? And I think that they were better managing their money, a lot better than we are, the newer generation.
Interesting.
But what the newer generation, the way they look at it mentally and emotionally, is where our parents were more of the scarce mindset, we're more of the abundant mindset. So it's a lot easier to make more money than to save more money, right? But at the end of the day, there has to be that balance where your cost of living or your expenses don't rise as you make more money. And that's what typically is the case. But I think one thing that our parents and their generation did right was more of spending wisely. They didn't go out to eat often, right? They didn't have to have the nicest car. They were very conservative, and they kept more of their hard-earned money as opposed to spending it. Where we spend a lot more than we make.
That's so interesting, because if you think about our parents, like growing up, every time we would want to go eat out with our friends, it would be the biggest deal.
Yeah.
There's food at home. Why are you going spending your money? If you buy clothes, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because to us, it does feel like it's just money. Like, we made it, we spend it, we'll make it again. To them, it's like, no, you should really keep and save that. How has your relationship with money evolved since you were young, on a personal level? Because I think that would be very important to how you view money now, seeing your clients, but at the same time going into this field. So how was that relationship like with money, and how did it evolve over time?
Growing up, we always felt like we had everything, and money was never a subject. So maybe that's a bad thing, right? So like, I didn't know. My dad never talked about the bills. My mom didn't even know how to pay a bill, right? My dad just handled everything. So money was, I feel like you feel like you need money when you're in pain, when you're suffering, when you're struggling, right? You feel that absence. Personally, I never felt that absence, right? So I'm fortunate to come from a home, but my parents were blue collar. So you're not talking about my dad being a business owner or investor or anything of that nature. They were blue collar workers. One of the first entrepreneurs in my family. But at the same time, I always had an abundant mindset. I always knew in my core, even as a child, as a teenager, growing up, I always knew that I will be successful. Like, it was never a doubt, or that I'm going to make a lot of money. And I believe that when you have that mindset, or you have an abundant mindset, or you look at things more optimistic, and not scarce, right? Not survival, and you're not chasing the dollar, it's cliche to say, but it will chase you. And I feel like that's the first step, is just truly believing in your core, I'm going to be successful. And that's like step one, but you have to support it with work ethic,
right,
with action. And we grew up in a great area. My mom and dad made a lot of wise financial decisions with real estate. But like I said, no real estate investing, no stocks. Like, it was just blue collar, hard work, mindset. And I believe that's like the first step. I know it's cliche, and a lot of people talk about it, but that's the secret.
I think what makes it cliche is people don't understand it. Like, they don't understand what does it mean to say I'm going to be successful and it actually happening. Especially when it comes to something like money, and especially when you grew up and you don't have it. So I think the general thought is, what am I just going to sit and think, close my eyes and think that I'm going to be successful? I'm going to wake up and then I'm going to have this thing that we've never had. My family never had this, you know. And I think that's why it's kind of difficult, and people will listen to that and be like, man, yeah, here we go again. Yeah. Right?
So to clarify, us having this conversation, if you look at it from a different lens and you come from a family where money was never an issue, you've always been around it, you've always been well off and successful, so it's never discussed. It's not even it's a normal part of life, right? The fact that we're even having this conversation shows you where so many people began. Now, when you know that 70% of millionaires in America, 70% are self-made, they didn't come from money. When you know that these types of statistics, and you never look at anybody like they're better than you, and everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, that's where you're like, this is possible. So the alternative or the excuse could be, oh, I didn't come from money. My parents, never taught us about money. We weren't successful. Look at all the stories you see about successful people. Some of them come from the hood, the ghetto. They don't have anything, from poverty. Look what they make. A lot of individuals grow up in broken households, right?
Right.
They learn things on their own, but look at what they make out of themselves. So when you know that it's actually in your favor, that the odds aren't against you, as long as you have the right mentality and work ethic and drive, and you make the right decisions, anything is possible. How is it that 70% of millionaires in the U.S. do this and are self-made and don't inherit this money?
That's crazy to think about. That means if you have two people, one that has come from nothing and one that has money, the statistics show that the one that has nothing is more likely to be a millionaire than the other person.
Exactly. And there's so many families, like, you know about the Vanderbilt dynasty, right? They lost generational wealth because of the way that the children spent the money, right? Whereas the Rockefellers have only grown in wealth. And
Up till now?
Up till now. And a lot of that is just instilled in control and the habits and who gets what and what you have to do in order to accomplish, to unlock the funds. But at the same time, it's the habits, it's the psychology, it's the traits that are passed down, where one dynasty is still around and the other has almost lost all of their money. And it almost becomes a curse if you come from wealth, because you get comfortable. You lose that desire or that drive or that chip on your shoulder, that motivation to continue to succeed. But that's also why I respect those who come from wealth and those from money, to continue that legacy and to continue to grow and build. And what we come across a lot is, I have a lot of respect for, I call them the OGs of the community, right? Those who started with nothing and created empires, right? And what we come across a lot is their sons or their daughters taking over the dynasty or the empire. But one of the first things they do is switch accountants, right? Or like they reach out to us. And part of the reason why is because they know how important accounting and efficiency and data is. But like, those are, there's a lot of children of wealthy families who take their family businesses to the next level. And we see a lot of that, right? Now, and then if you don't come from wealth, it's so important to have that fire in you. And it's not that you're desiring to make money for material possessions. You're desiring to make money, to grow, to build wealth, to provide a better life for yourself, your loved ones, and to help others in need, right? Money is a tool. Money is a terrible master, but a great servant. And since the beginning of time, whether it's expansion of faiths happens through money, whether it's universities, charitable organizations, like who do they rely on? They rely on donors. And from my perspective, there's no ultimate freedom than to be financially free, to establish, to be strong. There's a saying in Arabic that I love. And maybe you can say it for me, but basically, like for the audience, it's you put the money below you and it raises you up. If you put the money, if it gets to your head, it kind of brings you down, right? And that's just such a beautiful saying, because money can help lift you. But if it gets to your head, if you aren't humble, it can also take you down.
It's kind of the same thing what you said about building it from zero and it getting handed to you. If you see it as like a big bag of rocks, and if you have nothing, you're putting the rocks in this bag little by little, and you're adjusting to the weight, rather than you don't have a bag and then your dad just hands you a huge bag of rocks. It's, if anything, from what you're saying, it's way more harder to keep that bag of rocks because it's so heavy. The pressure is like, it amounts and it could kill you. But from what you're saying, it sounds like people who are passed down wealth need to have even more discipline than someone who doesn't have money to keep the money that they were inherited.
Absolutely. It's it's like, to whom much is given, much is tested. So that's why you see so many people who win the lottery, they go broke, they go bankrupt, they lose it all, because they don't have the habits or the discipline established to save the money or to keep it or how to spend it. It could be a blessing or it could be a burden. That's why those habits and that psychology of understanding money is so critical to conserving it. Where a lot of people who don't have those habits or that psychology, they burn right through it. And what good is it to have all this money if you don't even know how to spend it or how to invest it?
Especially if you have it to pass down to your kids, and so you're just gonna spend it, and then your kids. So why did you do it in the first place? It becomes weird, like that. Do you think our obsession with stability made it like kind of more difficult to think about building wealth because we just want to be stable? It kind of doesn't let us take risks, because if you're stable, you're in that position, you're not really going to be thinking about taking a risk and risking it all. Like,
comfort is a drug, and it could be an addiction. And I believe it's a personal preference, because if you are, the wealthiest person is the one who needs the least. So if you are content, you're happy, your bills are taken care of, you have no debt, and you're in a great position, you're wealthy, you're well off. Who's to say that having more money makes you wealthier? It doesn't. It's also, that's why the mindset of wealth is so important. But at the same time, I believe that what you're suppressing, or when you become comfortable, it's not that you're suppressing your ambition. You're suppressing your drive. Because if you're like, I kick my feet up on the desk, I'm done, I'm happy, this is great. If you're a business owner, your business is not going to continue to last. The minute you become comfortable. That's why it's so important to continue to grow and progress. And look at nature. Look at our lives. Like, we're always progressing. There's different seasons. And you got to keep it moving. So once you become comfortable, you can become stagnant, you regress. You're like, naturally, you're going back instead of continuing to move forward. So I think that you continue to work hard, you continue to accomplish your goals. Like I said, you're not chasing after the money. You're chasing maybe the wins. You're chasing building something special. You're chasing to serve more people. You're chasing to give, to pass something down to your children. It's that financial freedom to decide what I want to work on, when I want to work on it.
Yeah.
And I believe that is the goal. I don't think, and money is just a natural reward for you putting in the work, putting in the effort, building and helping more people. Like the more complex the problems you solve, the more rewarded you will be.
The more complex the problems you solve, the more rewarded you will be.
Yes. So what you're providing to society, like look at Amazon as an example. Look at how simple and how efficient they've made shopping. If you look at the way the app is set up, it's not like it's so simple, it's so clean, and where you think certain buttons should be, they are there, right? They've made it where you can get an item within the same day, right? Within hours. They've solved a complex issue. They've saved people so much time, right? And if you look at time as, time is more
Our
valuable
greatest
than money,
commodity, yeah.
right? So that's why Amazon is rewarded this much, because they solve such a complexity. So from a business owner perspective, let's say you're a real estate investor. You're providing housing to the general public. You're solving a problem that if you don't do it, the government's going to have to do it. If you're a business owner, you're providing a product or service to society. The government, you're going to be rewarded based on you have the ability to make decisions, to make money, to pay the amount of taxes that the tax code allows you to pay. So the government incentivizes business owners and investors to create jobs, to provide housing, to provide products and services to the society. You're solving complex problems, you're going to be rewarded. If you're an individual and you're working for a corporation, you're a W-2 earner, based on your job title, your description, or the responsibilities, or the team or staff that you have below you, you are rewarded based on solving these problems. So life in general is all about solving problems. And you are also rewarded by the amount of problems that you solve. So let's say you solve one problem, you're rewarded by having to solve another one. So the business life cycle, or life in general, is just solving and making the right decisions and unlocking new challenges to solve. And when you solve, sometimes you're in a position where you're like, man, this is so hard. I can't see myself overcoming this challenge. But the minute you solve it, you build endurance and you build more character, and it allows you to solve greater and more complex problems.
That's so interesting, because me and Firas have this conversation a lot, and we're building the media company, and then we talk about, okay, when it's at this point, we'll take a step back. And one time we were talking, and I told him, it's so weird, because the place that we are now, we said we would take a step back a couple of years ago. So when the projection is going like this, it's very hard for you physically to stop the graph and just go straight line, because of the new challenges that come up. And okay, you unlock this new level, right? Now we got another challenge and another problem to solve. So it kind of doesn't allow you to stop. Some people will be like, man, he has a $10 million company, why doesn't he stop? Or he has a very successful business, why doesn't he stop? It's difficult to stop when it's when the company is rising so high.
You would be crazy to just stop. Why would you stop? These are blessings. You're being rewarded. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. Why would you do that? You continue to build. You continue to provide. You continue to hire more people. You're providing more jobs. You're providing more services. You're spreading the wealth. This is what it's all about. This is what true success is in business, right? Now, at the same time, me and my brothers had this conversation a few days ago. Tax season, we just finished tax season, and we're busy year round, alhamdulillah. But I told my brothers, I was like, hey, do you guys remember when we had a number in our mind, and we're like, once we make that number every month, we're going to be good, right? And we just started laughing, because we're like, look where we're at now, and it's like, we just feel like we're starting. And I feel like if you as a business owner never forget or have that youthful energy or that drive, or like you're a startup, we're 10, 11 years in the game, but I'm telling you, we're feeling like we're just getting started.
You guys know how much I love Palestine drinks. You guys know how much it means to me that our people are creating alternatives to mainstream brands that don't compromise on taste or quality, and they're for a good cause. 100% of the proceeds of this company go straight to Palestine. And Palestine Drinks actually sent me their new flavor, the orange flavor. And what's funny is Palestine Drinks has many flavors, and they're coming soon. They're releasing them little by little in the United States. And before they sent me this, they told me that the orange is up there with the best flavors that they have. And I was skeptical until they sent me it, and I was, honest to God, blown away with how good this tastes. It might not be available yet if you're listening to this right now, but very, very soon, this flavor is going to be everywhere as well. Wherever you find Palestine Drinks already, you're going to find the Palestine orange flavor. So stay tuned. I'll keep you updated when it'll be out. And now, back to the episode. But I think I know why this happens. Is because in our culture, wealth and like making more money comes with guilt. Like we're raised that it's not the morally proper thing to do is to build financial empires and be financially successful at that level. And I don't know where that comes from, because I don't know. I don't know where that comes from, but I think that's the reason why we shoot ourselves in the foot, because you get to the point where, okay, everything's going well, but the guilt and be like, man, am I being greedy? And then these thoughts start to come, and then you just pull the trigger and you shoot yourself.
Yeah. I think it's across all cultures. And it could be just everybody's looking for an excuse. Everybody's looking for the bad guy. Good, evil, rich, poor, black, white, right? There's always an excuse for people to feel secure for themselves, to point to the reason why, oh, we're not making money, or money's not good. It's so easy to point and say it's wrong to do that. That's the excuse that people give because they didn't do it themselves. And I think it's more of a coping mechanism. And it's so easy to be like, oh, we didn't make money, or, we just focused on our faith, which is nothing wrong with that. But don't discredit people who are doing both. Because from my perspective, the real boss is the one, and it's such a fine line, it's such a delicate balance, is that you can be successful and you can also be a great person. Money's an amplifier. If you're a good, genuine person, money's going to help you do good, genuine things. If you're a rotten person, if you're terrible, money's going to allow you to do evil, right? And money's the true test. Sometimes we think that, like, you're tested in health, and there's so many other tribulations and poverty with money, but you're also tested with blessings too. Like, why do we look at things where you're not tested with money? What if that is your test? To be like, hey, you're going to be successful, and I'm going to see what you're going to do with it. There's also a reason why we, Prophet Solomon, King Solomon, like, we have these stories, these biblical, Quranic stories for a reason. That there was nobody richer than him, but he was also divine, right? So, like, is money evil? From my perspective, absolutely not. Can you do bad things with money? 100%. Can you do bad things? Look, a lot of people who are quote unquote religious or pious, they abuse their power. That's their status. So there's status games too that are being played. And there's a lot of people who use their status or their superiority to control people or take advantage of people. So just because, but like I said, the fine line is the ability to do both. And that's why I see a lot of great people who are very wealthy, very successful. And I, as you grow older, you realize that don't take the opinion of people who just, talk.
And you really, you saying that money is just simply, or like business and like growing businesses is simply solving a problem. And then like you look around the studio now, and you can see the problems that everything fixed and why it's successful. Like this, for example, no alternative to mainstream soda or mainstream drinks. You know what? We're gonna do one, put an Arabic twist on it, uh, donate the money to follow, like solving problems, solving complex problems, and you get rewarded.
That's what it's all. That's the name of the game. And if you look at it from that perspective, if you're a problem solver, as a business owner, as a leader, you gotta look at what you do for a living, and say, if somebody's coming up to you and they're telling you, "Hey, Jaafar, we have this problem," you're gonna look at them and say, "What's the solution?" So if you're a solution-oriented individual, you will always be successful
In business.
in life, because you're always going to face problems. The question is the ability to make the right decisions, the ability to look at a problem and just cut straight through it. Be like, this is what we're going to do, right? And that is what gets you paid the big bucks, the ability to make decisions. And we face decisions in our everyday life. You always have two choices, right, wrong, right? Also, the ability to learn from a loss or learn from the wrong decision, the ability to adapt, the ability to innovate, the ability to work with speed. Like, these are talents that you don't have to come from wealth or from a family to be kind, to be polite, to have good manners, to be ethical, to smile, right? Like, to show up on time. These are traits that if you have them as an individual, you show up to work, you're going to climb the corporate ladder. You're going to succeed in the entrepreneurial space. It's these character traits that you have to have, and then the success, the hard work, that all follows.
You're in this very unique position where there's not too many people in the world that have the access that you have. And you talked about serving earlier, you serve the top 1% of earners in the country. From East Coast to West Coast, you've seen it all. What are the systems that your wealthiest clients implement that like the normal person wouldn't even know existed?
The 1% or high income earners are not different, like I said a little bit earlier, than you and I, right? They just have this obsession. They have this work ethic. I swear to you, people think that it comes so easy. They will outwork the normal or average Joe. So what is a normal person missing? The obsession, the work ethic, right? Or the opportunity. So there's a lot of business owners who, like, you can work 12, 15-hour days, but if you're in a opportunity that isn't scalable, you're in the wrong opportunity. You need to make a pivot. You need to make a move, right? That market share that you're in is just, you can't succeed in it. But for those that have the work ethic, have the right concept, have the right opportunity, the difference between the 1% and 99% is their psychology and how they look at things. And they look at it from a abundant perspective, and also, if I can't I will figure it out, and nobody's going to outwork me, and I'm going to leverage my understanding of debt and credit and investments better than what the 99% do. You see, we have a consumer-driven economy, which means the U.S. economy relies on consumers to spend money. But what the wealthy do is they know how to invest their money. And that's the main difference. And a lot of times it's not necessarily only in real estate or only in stocks. A lot of times it's investing in themselves. It's investing in their education. It's investing in their business because they control it. And they would rather invest in themselves because they control how this money is being spent than investing it in the stock market or in real estate, things that they can't necessarily control. So I think the main difference First is the psychology of the 1%, and understanding that the only difference is that they are willing to outwork, outcompete, and outlast the majority of people.
So it's more of a mentality mindset, really, than other than like a financial system that they have in place. It's their mentality. And when you said opportunity, does that translate to luck? Like they also have to be lucky, or do you not think luck plays a factor in this?
I look at it where blessings. Like, I'm not lucky, I'm blessed, right? Like, it's, of course, there's an element where there has to be some type of divine intervention, right? Where it's like you happen to be at the right space, the right time, and these things happen, but nothing happens overnight. So you can call it luck or blessings if somebody puts in a decade of hard work and energy and dedication to their opportunity. It just so happens to be that they become an overnight success. Everybody forgets about the whole decade of them working and not showing up and missing out on certain special events and moments because they were just obsessed with mastering their craft.
That's what I saw the other day. It's someone was explaining luck or talking about luck, and they said that if you really work very, very hard, luck happens. It's not you're going to be sitting down one day and you're just going to become lucky. You're going to be working very, very hard, and then that's kind of where the divine intervention, even we have it in our faith that when you work very hard, God is going to reward you for that hard work. But if it's actual hard work, if you're really putting the time in, and that's, so there's kind of like a prerequisite to luck. You want to be lucky? You got to work really hard first.
100%. Yeah, it's you can call it the law of attraction, you can call it the universe, you can call it God. It's everything is working for you in a sense, where if you have this capability to invest your time and energy, educate yourself, work hard, have that purpose, have that drive, have that desire, the reward will follow. Money is just a natural order of things coming to you because you put in the time and energy. You're trading your time.
Someone making $50,000 a year is probably going to be listening to this, and he's going to be like, what are you talking about? I want to be in that top 1% of earners. What are they doing that I can do aside from the mindset? Like, what are they budgeting differently? Or when you say they're investing, what type of investments can like a single mom making $50,000 a year do?
Yeah, it's so hard. It's a lot easier from my perspective to make more than to save, because we look at society today, you look at inflation, the middle class is getting wiped out, right? It's becoming like rich and poor, and it's difficult. It's hard when you have responsibilities, but it's a cycle where it's a trap. You become a slave to the system, where you're constantly chasing. You're like, I can't even afford to get groceries or pay my rent or my mortgage or support my children, and I'm racking up all this credit card debt. It's a cycle. That's why I am of the belief where it's so important to try to find a either second source of income or be able to manage your time. It's so hard. Like you mentioned, single mom. I have nothing but respect for mothers, because just being a mom in general is a full-time job, right? And then you have to work. You don't have the luxury of early morning hours or late night hours. Maybe you do, right? Where you can work on a side hustle. But if there's a will, there's a way. I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. And we all see these stories that happen. But like, if let's say you're making $50,000 a year and you have maybe a couple $100 or maybe a couple grand left, like you don't have that much responsibility on a monthly basis that you can save or invest, I'd highly recommend investing in your education, investing in yourself. Not necessarily university, but taking courses online that you're passionate about. So for example, let's say you want to you're interested in art, or you're interested in creativity, or you're interested in real estate, learn the game, learn the craft while you're still working. Like, there's a lot of great opportunities in the corporate world. Learn the systems, take the benefits, be able to invest in these retirement opportunities that the corporation gives you, like whether it's matching or not. Take advantage of that. But at the same time, like we have clients who've made millions of dollars, W-2 earners. They've retired, and what's the first thing they're doing? Starting a business. So like, you could be at the highest peak in the corporate world, but at some point you're going to want to start your own business or create something. So what I would suggest to that earner just starting, think about the entrepreneur space. Think about real estate. Real estate is a great opportunity. If you're under $150,000 and you could qualify for maybe a low down payment, buy your first rental property. And then that asset, you'll benefit from appreciation. So real estate is only appreciating in value, but you'll also be able to tap into depreciation. And those losses, those paper losses from your real estate investment, can offset your income from your job that you pay taxes on. So like, there's so many ways where W-2 earners can benefit from the entrepreneur space as well, where it's like, hey, I like my job. I like the people I work with. I don't want to quit my secure and stable position. But how can I also tap into the business space? Invest in real estate. I'm not a fan of W-2 earners investing in a business that they're not operating, because that'll most likely fail. But if you can invest in real estate, I think that's a great opportunity. And then if you really want me to dive in, I can get into like short-term rentals. I can get into real estate professional status and all of that. But I'm sure we can probably touch base on that later in the conversation.
Knowing that there's an option that I don't have to just do the W-2 job or just being an employee is new. Like at least like to how I see it, I never saw people do that before. It was just, I'm an employee for life. And we worked with like Ford and these companies, and you meet people that have been there for like 30 years, and you would say, how, like, it's kind of odd when you listen to those numbers. But I want to know, when you're at that high level of earners, and when you see the numbers and the lifestyle and how they live their life, does it intimidate you at all?
I get so happy when I see the niche type of businesses and the way that people are making money and how they're making it. It's unbelievable. It's so special. When you see how people are making money doing things that you would never even imagine. There's a way to make money. If you are a talented individual and you have an art that is different than anybody else, there's always a market share out there that you can capitalize on. And to your point about, our parents' generations, they worked for corporations for 30 plus years. What's nice about our generation is there's more flexibility, there's more creativity, there's more excitement. There's more where it's like, I'm good. I'm not going to dedicate my life 30 years to just one company. Like, there's nice to see the amount of loyalty, right? And a lot of people have built wealth, believe it or not. They've become millionaires because they've worked for 30 years and they've invested through, like, let's say GM or Ford in 401ks, and over 30-year time, they're millionaires.
I think the CEO of Nike now was an intern, and he climbed all the way up to being CEO.
Because of the opportunity that Nike presented. So if you're in a space that there's opportunity for growth, working in the corporate world is excellent, right? Now, in the entrepreneurial space, it's uncapped. Like, there is no ceiling, which is nice. And sometimes you don't have to wait 15 years, 20, 30 to get to that level. But in the position that I am in, you wouldn't believe it. It's so, like, it's amazing to see how people are making money. And to be honest, there's no excuse. There's literally no excuse. There is a audience for everybody. You just have to find a way to monetize it. And to be fair, I like subscription models. I like recurring revenues. And if you target a large enough audience, you can do very well, because that large audience is interested in what you're interested in. And if they're only paying $19 a month times 1,000 people, I mean, it adds up. So it's all about your reach and your ability to target more people to you. And that's why I do believe that social media the internet has become an equalizer. It's a level playing field now, where as long as you have an iPhone or the ability to upload content and your content is good enough, you can monetize off of it. And I'm not just talking about sponsorships or anything. No, it's about there's enough people in the world that share a lot of the beliefs that you share and want to be and are willing to pay for it.
What are some of the weirdest professions that you've seen your clients have that have made them a very good amount of money? Like, what types of professions were you referring to when you said you'd be surprised what people are doing and making a lot of money from?
So I won't disclose too much information. I'll discuss industries, right? So like, you can call it the water industry. You can call it private events and chefs. You can call it, international. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible because they're gonna know I'm talking about that. So I can't disclose too much information. But like, you can talk about wholesaling, distribution. You can talk about parts and manufacturing. There's a industry and a market for everybody.
What are the industries that make the most money?
So there are a lot of industries that will make you, your revenue can be $100 million in sales, right?
Okay.
But your net profit could be 5 or 10%. So even though you're bringing in all this revenue, you also have high cost of goods and high expenses. Whereas you can make $1 million a year, but your net profit is 50%. Like you can compare it. So it's not just about how much you make, it's also how much you get to keep. But I am of the belief that your ability to solve problems, your ability to serve more people will allow you to become more successful. So if you are a distributor, how many grocery stores can your product be in? If you are a private chef, in this example, how many people will advertise more about their experience with you, right? So remember, a lot of social media is excellent, but a lot of these types of businesses are referral based as well. So there's real people talking about shared experiences. And right now in the digital age, I think that anything that involves some type of human interaction will be successful.
Okay.
Will perform best. If you're a lawyer, finding ways where you can not just be in court or be in front of a judge. How can you provide consultation services to more people, right? So it's always about taking what you're doing, but having a large enough audience where that'll allow you to make more money.
Okay.
Right? If more people know more about the product or service you sell, there's more eyeballs, that equals more dollars. But if you're confined to just a specific local market or demographic, you're limited, which is still good because then you rely, as long as you have a good product or service, people will come no matter where you are.
But like if I was 21 and I didn't know what to do with my life and I came and told you, Khalil, like you have the blueprint of the wealthiest people in America, what advice would you give me on, and I don't know what I want to do, which field should I go into that would probability wise make me that type of money?
So you're right. We're in a position where we see like who's making money, what works, what doesn't work. But at the same time, it's so hard like, and I think this is a great quality of mine that I have, is I never ever look at what a business owner does and think, man, that's incredible. I should do that. And I think that is so important. I would tell that 21-year-old, what do you like? If money, put money aside, what are your interests? And then find a way to monetize that. And I am of the belief that what you kill is what you eat. So what you can control yourself is the business that you want to pursue. And that is aligned by what you're interested in and how you can monetize that. And if it's a market that is like, bro, I don't care how many hours you're going to work. You're not going to be successful in this. This is a very low industry. It's a lot of high barriers to entry. It's super saturated. Like, you're not going to do well. Don't even waste your time. I would share that. But I would first target, what are your goals? What do you think you would be happy with in life? Like, what? Because making money, it's not just about making money. You can make money doing illegal things. But at the end of the day, can you sleep good at night?
What's sustainable?
100%. You got to look at it like, okay, what the 1% have, the belief is they're long-term thinkers. They're not short-term. They are thinking decades ahead. And that's what I tell that 21-year-old. When you're 30 years old, what type of position do you want to be in? You know, when you're 40 years old, what type of position do you want to be in? But you have to show up every day. If you're going to build, if you're going to work, if you're going to dedicate your time, you have to be passionate about it. These are my thoughts. Like, I see that, okay, money isn't emotional, or you don't have to have passion to make money. That's true, but how's your lifestyle going to be, right? Like, you as a human being, are you going to be satisfied? Are you going to be content? Are you going to feel like there's so much more to life than just making money? You're spending so much of your time at work or on a business. I want fulfillment from that. So, and the money is just a reciprocal.
I think that's the part where people don't think of in the long run. And that was actually thinking about the lifestyle of the career that I wanted to pursue was the main factor of me switching into this field. I wanted to be a therapist, and then I was close to other therapists, and I see their lifestyle, and I'm like, that's not something that I want to do. Like, I love the aspect of it, of talking to people, make them feel better, but like, that lifestyle wasn't necessarily for me. I couldn't see myself in that position, and that's when it switched. Like, even though I really love this thing or the aspects of it, if I don't see myself in this profession, I have to do something else.
That's an excellent example. Like, what you did was you took your passion about therapy, conversations, talking to people, and you found a way to monetize it. You found a way to make it a career where you're enjoying having these conversations, you're creating content, and you're also monetizing it.
Bringing value to other people as well.
This is the beauty of it. It's impactful, it's purposeful, and you're rewarded. This is what I'm talking about.
Let's talk about practicality. So you explained the mindset in a way where I really think if someone's listening to this, they're going to be like, okay, if I can do this mindset shift properly, I'm on the right track. But now I want to start practically. I want to start on the ground. Where does someone start with this building wealth journey?
So number one, like you said, it starts with the psychology. So you got that out of the way, right? Number two, you have to understand the importance of credit. And your credit in your tax returns in this country is what unlocks opportunities. So, for example, the wealthy look at credit and debt as a long-term investment, whereas the majority of people are consumers, like I mentioned earlier. So they make money, they spend it. But if you look at investments as a bill, it's an expense that you have to spend. So you take $100 and instead of buying something with it that is just wasteful, you invest it in the market, or you put it away in your savings, or you invest it in a 401k. This is what that discipline and that ability to do that, to control the ins and the outs, the cash flow, that's what allows you to unlock opportunities. So let's say, for example, you pay your bills on time, you have good credit, your debt to income ratio, you have low debt, right? So your income doesn't have to be as high. As long as you have low debt, you can qualify for lending. These are the first metrics that I would focus on, is make sure that you have good credit. How do you have good credit? You probably shouldn't spend more than 30% of your expenses on your credit card. You want to probably keep credit cards at like a 10%. You want to pay your credit cards maybe twice a month as opposed to just one time a month, right? To give yourself less debt that you carry. You want to obviously pay your bills on time. Now, let's say you have good credit. The next step would be you're an employee. You have a W-2 and you work for a corporation. It's important to leverage the opportunities that your employer provides. A lot of employers provide retirement plans or HSA contributions or things that small business owners don't necessarily have the opportunities to have when they're first starting off. So if you're an individual and you work for a company, make sure you take advantage of 401k investments that you can make, because you have this salary. Max out your 401k contributions. I think for like 2025, it's like 23 grand for an individual. Max out that, because that $23,000 that is being withheld or contributed from your W-2, it's not taxed. You're not taxed on that money.
Wait, so what does that mean? So what's a 401k?
So a 401k is a retirement plan that employers offer for growth, for investment growth.
And when you say you can max it out, so you can tell your employer that I want the maximum amount of money taken away from my salary and put into that 401k?
Yeah, so there's contribution limits.
Okay.
And it changes every year. For 2025, it's like 23 grand,
Okay.
right? But you have to be able to make enough money
To put 23
to put away that money. But you can contribute 10 grand. You can contribute 15. It doesn't have to be the max. But if you are in a position where you can max it out every year, that money adds up quick. You're talking within like 4 years, you're looking at $100,000 that's already being invested. Now, the beauty of it is you're not taxed on that 23 grand, on that contribution. So let's say you make $123,000 gross. You're only going to be taxed on $100,000 on your W-2, while that $23,000 is invested in the market. Now, that money that's being invested is also going to grow. You're probably looking at maybe, between 8 to 10% growth on your money that you're invested. And what's nice is you're not working for it. It's passive. So if you are an employee and you have the ability to invest in a 401k or an IRA, take advantage of that. Now, a lot of employers also match. So they'll match your contributions dollar for dollar. That's free money. So if your employer provides that, take advantage of that. That's one way to build wealth while still being a W-2 earner.
What's the incentive for the employer to match it?
A lot of employers, the job market is very competitive. So for them to want to recruit top talent to work for them, the employer provides these types of benefits to get employees to work for them.
Get top tier talent. Okay.
Exactly.
Understandable.
Now, another option is an HSA account.
Which is what?
It's a health savings account.
Okay.
And there's it's like a triple threat with HSA. Now, you're only limited to, let's call it like 8 grand. It's like 85.50 for 2025. Like, these numbers are always changing for a family, and it's like 4,300 for an individual, right? We all have medical expenses. The HSA is a contribution that you can make that is tax deductible. Okay, so you're not taxed on the money. It reduces your tax on that. And the HSA is also invested. Okay, now the withdrawals on the HSA are also tax-free. So there's the triple threat. It's tax deductible. There's gains on the HSA investment that aren't taxed. And you can also spend the money on health savings, on eye care, on dental care, medical care, and not be taxed on that money. That's your money. Okay? Take advantage of the HSA. That's another vehicle to invest in. So as a W-2 earner, you want to take advantage of these benefits that your employers provide. Another benefit is, like I said, starting that side hustle or start getting involved in real estate. Now, there's a different tax code for individuals and business owners. And that's why you see a lot of, popular culture talks about how, for God's sakes, the president of the United States gets called out by saying, he hasn't paid any income tax. And he says, I'm smart. This is the president of the United States. If he and many others like Amazon and Netflix and these conglomerates can get away with not paying any income tax, are they doing anything illegal?
People assume that, right?
You assume that, like I said earlier, it's just
Because they're
pointing the
giants.
finger.
Yeah.
It's pointing the finger, and it's also the fact that they don't know it. They fear it. And when you fear the unknown, that's the reaction that you have. You just point the finger at somebody and say, oh, they're doing something wrong. Where it's like, no, don't hate the player, hate the game. Follow the code. Understand that they have the ability to hire the best accountants and lawyers that understand the tax code. But even as a W-2 earner or you're an employee, leverage real estate. Leverage that side hustle. Because if you're pursuing a business, you got your job, you're 9 to 5, but then from 5 to 9, you're pursuing you're investing in, let's say, in real estate, and you're doing short-term rentals. That's how you are so strategic, because there are no passive loss limitations, or there are limitations, but you can offset a lot of your W-2 salary by taking paper losses when you invest in real estate.
You can offset W-2, like if you're an employee making income, you can deduct your income through real estate?
A lot of it's not cool to be an employee. It's not cool to work for a corporation.
Right.
I'm biased. I love business owners. I love entrepreneurs. I love those who take the risk and are rewarded. But I also respect individuals who have a great job. They're making good money. They're taking care of their family. And are they doing something wrong? Like, who are you to say that what they're doing is wrong? It's just, so I respect that, even from the person the level that I'm at. But it's a cheat code. You have this high income W-2, right? So like if you're under 150,000, invest in real estate all day. Save enough for a down payment, even if it's like 3-5%. Buy real estate, and then use the paper losses through depreciation from the real estate to offset your W-2 income. So why do that? It's because you paid tax on $150,000 of salary throughout the year. So now all of a sudden you have a $25,000-$30,000 loss. Now the tax that you paid on 150, you should have only paid on 120,000.
Why is it called a loss?
I'll explain that. But so that means the money that was withheld from you is going to be returned to you in the form of a refund. So it's a great way to hack the system. Now, when I say paper loss, I'm talking about depreciation. So a lot of investors, they're buying real estate and they're financing it. So the bank, they're going to the bank, they're qualifying for the loan. They're using the bank's money for leverage to invest in the real estate. Okay. And then their tenant is simply paying off the mortgage. Now, when you buy a $250,000 property, you don't get a $250,000 expense. It doesn't work like that. There are rules. Fixed assets have a specific life. Okay. And real estate, specifically residential real estate, is like 27 and a half years. Now, that purchase price subtracted the land. Let's say the structure is worth $200,000. Now you are able to deduct that $200,000 plus any improvements like construction, leasehold improvements to the property to increase the value. You're able to deduct that, but you can't deduct it all at once. You have to deduct it over 27 and a half years. Now, the idea is you're making, let's say, $18,000, $24,000 in rental income, minus all your expenses, minus the depreciation, which is, let's call it, another $15,000 expense, 10 to 15 grand on the low end. Your income is zero. So it wiped out all the income that you had, but you made, that's 15 to 18 grand net after all expenses, but you don't pay tax on that.
Yeah.
Because of depreciation. right? It's the way to expense your purchase price of the property. Now, the creative or individuals are those that invest in real estate and generate a loss, right? Because now that loss can offset their income. But if you're making more than 150, there's different types of rules. Okay? So if you're making more than $150,000 as a earner and you invest in real estate and you have losses, you're only allowed to carry them forward. For the point where you sell the property or you're making less than 150, then you can tap into the carry forward losses.
Okay.
But one way to, you can call it a loophole, you can call it a hack, is to invest in short-term rentals or properties. And the Internal Revenue Code classifies real estate as short-term as long as you have your tenants staying there for 7 days or less. So think about it from this perspective. What companies out there have taken over the market that is known for having short-term rentals or visits? Airbnb, VRBO, right? So you as a W-2 earner making more than 150 can now invest in real estate. And as long as you are having tenants at your property for less than 7 days, and as long as you are materially participating for 500 hours or more in the maintenance, the upkeep, the Airbnb, the services, as long as you are spending more than 500 hours or more on this property, now you can take the losses from this property and offset your $250,000, $300,000, $500,000 W-2.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, let's take it a little bit further. Okay. So now you're a high income earner and you are investing in real estate. You're understanding the game, and you're seeing how, wow, this is becoming very profitable and I'm really enjoying this. And I am spending my time, but my assets are appreciating in value. These properties are in good locations. Like we have clients who are making millions of dollars that have short-term rentals in great locations, and they're almost like recession-proof. Like they're always gonna do well, right? And they're taking the losses from these investments and they're offsetting their millions of dollars that they're making. It's incredible. But at the end of the day, you have to make the money first. Like you can't do any of this stuff. I love sharing this insight, but I want to remind the audience, you're not going to have a tax problem if you're not making money, right? Making money or having a tax problem is a good problem to have because then you can solve it. Because you have the tools and resources like money to leverage to be able to buy real estate, right? So sometimes you don't have a tax problem, you have a money-making problem. And I would always advise business owners or individuals to make the money first. Take care of your living expenses, take care of your loved ones. And then if you have that extra money, then you can invest and build and create. But regarding the real estate investment.
It sounds like you're really with real estate investment.
I'm a big fan of real estate investing because it appreciates in value. It's an asset that you control. It's a great hedge against inflation. But it also depreciates, which means you can offset your income that you're making through your active businesses through this investment vehicle. It's incredible. It's a great asset. Plus, it's also good for like sheltering wealth. It's also good for generational wealth. It's a great way to say, you know what? When I want to pay for my children's college tuition, I'm going to give them this property. This property, the rental from it or the income generated from it is going to pay for their college. Each child is going to have a property, right? Like, so it's just looking at things from a different perspective. But I want to get back to some strategies that the very wealthy do to take greater paper losses. So for example, you're over that 150 limit, $250,000, $500,000 W-2, $1 million of income. Now you get into...
Are those common? 500,000 W-2 earner?
It's so common. I'm telling you, it's all about access and what you see and who you come across and who's part of your network. Like I told you,
$50,000 a year someone making, hearing that someone because even me thinking 500,000 a year, I'm thinking this guy owns his business, or 200,000 or 300,000. unless you're like this genius software engineer that is doing the 300,000 a year. It's just it feels out of reach, right? Until you say these things and you're like, all right, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places then, you know?
It's not that it's so common, right? But there are a lot of people who are in a great financial position. There are. Like, it's not uncommon. I mean, we're surrounded by it because this is the avatar that we seek. This is the demographic that we serve, the 1%. This is who we're after. And when we see it so often, it becomes normal, right? But I told you, it's all about perspective. To someone making 50,000, 200,000 is incredible money, which it is. It's great money. Somebody making 200,000, they look at somebody making 500,000 and they look at it like, man, it's incredible. Like, the bar's always higher. There's always more. Someone making $1 million, that's 83 grand a month. That's a lot of money. I wouldn't, like, it's called the 1% for a reason. Like, there is a 1%, but 1% of 330 million, that's a lot of people, right? Like, there's a lot of wealth to go around. And what's crazy is this. These numbers that I'm talking about, somebody else can look at it and be like, $1 million? Like, I make that in a week. Like, so it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's so important not to get numb, but also understand that everybody started in your position. They started at that $50,000 salary. Then they grew to 100, then to 200, then to 250. Like, it's all about growth. And these things take decades to do, right? And I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's possible.
You know, one thing I realized is the other day, my friends were discussing this, and we were looking back and when we were making, like, in that minimum wage era, phase in our life, and we would say that, man, when we hit the 6 figures, life is going to be different. And then we looked at each other and, like, it doesn't feel different at all. It's you're making 6 figures, it feels exactly the same. And now you're looking to, now one of my friends was like, I think where we should be is at, like, the 400,000 mark. That's where things change. But like you're saying, okay, you're at the 400,000, you're going to be looking, okay, what's next? This seems normal now. And you're just going to keep looking more and more and more.
Yeah, that's 400,000 is a lot of money, right? Like, you can live great, you can live incredible on that, right? But like I said, I think at that level, you're not chasing the money. You're building something, you're creating something. The money just follows.
You were saying something about the 500,000 people that were in the high W-2 earners, how they offset paper income.
Yeah. So what the strategic high income earners do is, because they're over the 150, they don't qualify to take those losses. They have to carry them forward. They can get into, like I said, the short-term rental space. The rules are 7 days or less for all tenants, 500 plus hours of active participation in the rental property. And then you can take those losses, like the maintenance, the advertising, the investments that you're putting into your property to appreciate in value. This is all deductible. So that allows you to take short-term rental losses to offset your high income. In addition to that, what the real successful and creative high income earners do is one of the spouses. So let's say the husband is high income, W-2, medical professional, and the spouse manages the real estate portfolio for the family. Now, when you get into real estate professional status, reps, this is a different level playing field, right? There's different levels to this game, because now this is how you see so many powerful individuals not pay any tax, because they are real estate professionals. They make the majority of their money through real estate, and the tax code is most favorable for business, investing, and real estate. This unlocks those losses that you can take because you qualify as a real estate professional. What does that mean? So you're a high income earner, W-2, or even if you're a business owner and your spouse can be the real estate professional, that's the ability, because you guys filed jointly, as long as your spouse or you as a real estate professional, let's say you're not married, let's say you're just a real estate professional, as long as you're managing your property for 750 hours or more, and you spend more of 50% of your time on real estate activity, you can take the losses that you generate from real estate to offset all of your active income, whether it's a W-2, whether it's a business. Now, how do you generate paper losses? As I mentioned earlier, depreciation for residential real estate is 27 and a half years. Depreciation for commercial real estate, the fixed asset life, is 39 years. Nobody's going to wait 27 and a half years or 39 years to take losses.
Right.
So the hack is called a cost segregation study. So if you look at a structure, a real estate structure, there's fixtures, there's electrical, there's plumbing, there's floors, there's the structure that you can break into different assets. And doing a cost segregation study allows you to segregate the cost of this structure into different buckets. So in depreciation, there's 5-year property, there's 10-year, there's 15-year property that you can take as a bonus in year one. So instead of saying, all right, this property that cost me $1 million, let's say 200,000 of it is land. So I had this $800,000. I can break it apart into buckets and say, out of this 800,000, I'm going to take close to 30% of it, and I'm going to break it into assets that I can depreciate over 15 years or 5 years. And with bonus depreciation, allows you to deduct it in year one. Like, this is the tax code. I've been part of these with our clients.
And the hack is just doing the cost segregation study?
So it's doing the cost segregation study, but also qualifying as a real estate professional to take the loss.
Okay.
Because if you do the cost segregation study, and you're a high income earner, but you don't qualify as a real estate professional, you can only carry forward. Like, there's no sense of doing the cost seg.
Okay.
Because you can't take the loss. You have to carry it forward. But if your spouse is a real estate professional, or you make the majority of your money through real estate, right? So let's say you sold real estate and you made, a couple $100,000, and then you have an investment that you just purchased, and you generate, $300,000 in losses, that can offset all the income that you made. So on paper, you owe zero money in taxes, right? So like, this is what the wealthy do. And the beauty about it is, you're almost forced to continue to do this year after year, as long as you're making money. Because when you take, like, a lot of people won't share this, but when you take that $300,000 loss, you need more losses for the following years because you're continuing to make money. Right. So what does that do? You have to buy another property. So
maybe a bigger property,
which is fine because it's increasing your portfolio and it's not your money. As long as you're coming up with the down payment,
right? It's
the bank's money. You're leveraging the bank's money. And as long as your return is greater than the interest that you're paying, it's a no-brainer, right? But like I said, you have to have the liquidity to be able to do that. Now, I've seen it. I've seen wiping out hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes because of these strategies. I've implemented them, like, they work. So, but this is not for everybody. But if you're in that position, you are a high income earner, you can tap into that real estate professional status, you or your spouse, and you could take advantage of these cost segregation studies. We do this. Like, we do this for so many of our high income clients. And it's nice. I mean, look, you got people are doing well. That's what I get from this. Like, I'm speaking this language, and sometimes it can sound like
intimidating,
and very intimidating, yeah. Right? But like, people are doing this, and they're just normal people, just like you and I. They just work hard. They made the money, and they invest it.
We look at them as they might be smarter than us, but I think you told me this one time. No one, like, you look at the regular people, like, it's not rocket science what they're doing. It's they're There's a rule book, and they're going by the rule book and taking advantage of that.
They're following the playbook, the rule book. They work with the right advisors. They have the right team around them. They think long term, and they buy assets. Like, it's so nice to have nice things, but there's a reason why you see so many G-Wagons or Range Rovers or Escalades or luxury vehicles. These are assets, and as long as they're not losing value, the wealthy are benefiting from that. They're deducting these business vehicles if they qualify for it, right? So they're not just spending. What the wealthy do is they want something nice. They'll buy a business or an asset first to pay for the liability. Whereas the majority of people, all they have is liabilities. They're just consumers. They're just spenders. Where the wealthy are a lot better with their money. They want something nice. They want something luxury. They'll buy a business.
They have to earn it.
They'll make the money, and then they'll buy it.
Yeah. I have a question. So when I first came to America, I came alone. I didn't have my parents. I had to pay rent from day one. So it was very difficult for me to have the luxury of being in my parents' home and saving money that way, like working and saving money that way. I wanted to see if I would have to go back to that time. Would I have been able to maybe invest or do something that was smarter using a credit card? Because credit cards pile up expenses, and you talked about the cycle, the debt cycle. If at that time I was never able to save money to invest in real estate and working minimum wage jobs, all these things, how could I have used my credit card to potentially build wealth?
Any form of credit there's risk involved, right? It could be loans from the bank, it could be finance, it could be credit cards. When real estate also is a long-term play. So like, it's long-term. Like, you're not going to make money off of real estate. It's the benefit is the appreciation in value, hedge against inflation, and then the depreciation, paper losses that offset other income. That's where the benefit is. But in order to buy real estate, you have to have liquidity. From the credit perspective, if you're living check to check, there's no way. Like, you got to take care of yourself first. Like I said, you got to make more money in order to have the luxury of having other investments, right? And that takes time. Nothing happens overnight. Everything that I'm sharing with you, nobody got this overnight. Decades.
There's not an overnight hack.
There's no overnight success. And if it does happen overnight, it'll leave overnight. So the faster it comes, the faster it leaves. I'm a huge believer in that. Especially you see it today. When it comes to credit could be, you can leverage credit as long as you're paying your credit cards off and you're paying them off timely and you're not spending more than 30% of your expenses on credit card. You don't carry that debt, right? You want to keep it between 10 to 30. Now, if you people talk about rewards. That's also like a trap where you're spending all this money on credit cards just to get the rewards, but you're not able to pay off the credit card. Now, if you are in debt, there's two methods to pay off the debt. There's two philosophies. Number one is the avalanche method, and number two is the snowball method. The avalanche method is real. It's actually saving you money. The avalanche method is when you're paying off the highest interest credit cards first. The snowball method is, let me pay off the credit cards with the least balance. And what it is more so, it's more of a psychological win than anything that's tangible, right? So if you're in debt, those are the two methods or two approaches to take.
What do you like?
I like avalanche. Like I go big or go home, and anything that I do, I just go to the extreme.
So if I have 3 credit cards right now and I have debt on all 3, you would suggest paying minimum payment on 2 and one of them hammer hard. As much as I can.
So look, if you have 3 credit cards that you're in debt in, there's a psychological problem first.
Okay.
That means you don't have good habits.
Right.
So maybe I would start.
But I want to break the habits.
Yeah. So maybe I would start with the snowball, because I would feel like, wow, like this balance is going down. I'm making improvements. I'm able to pay this balance down. Maybe I would start with that to increase my confidence psychologically.
Okay.
And then I'd go into the avalanche, right?
Okay.
But like me personally, I can switch like instantly. I can make that move like right away, where I'm just an avalanche. Like, okay, if I'm going to do something, I'm doing it right. And I'm going to tackle the highest interest credit card first, and then I'll work my way down.
Okay.
Because I may not need that. I'm mentally strong. I have that psychology already. I'm confident. But for those who are not, you need those small wins first. Get those W's first, and then tackle the highest interest credit card. Like, these are all habits. But credit is good. Like, you establish credit. You have, because that worthiness, that credit worthiness is what allows you to qualify for lending for real estate purposes, lending to start your own business. So I don't want to, like, you definitely want to leverage credit cards.
Do you have a favorite credit card?
Yeah, I do actually.
What's your favorite credit
I
card?
like, I'm an Amex guy, right? For personal purposes and business, but one of my favorite credit cards is, and I hope they reimburse me for this, it's a Capital One Spark
Okay.
card, 2% cash back, right? And if you're a big spender in business and you're constantly swiping that card, you're legit getting 2% of your money back in cash or whatever perk that you want. And I know there's other credit cards out there. There are Chase cards out there that will give you these rewards. But if you are shopping around for credit cards, and if you're disciplined and you can pay off the debts and you want to leverage rewards, look for the highest percentage cash back, because it's free money, right? Like, you can rack up tens of thousands of dollars in cash back. And by the way, it's not taxable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a big, so the cash back that you get, if you spend money on your credit card for business purposes and you get a cash back incentive, you're not taxed on that. It's a reduction of your expenses, right? Technically, by reducing expenses, you're claiming more income, but you're not like taxed on that cash
The
back
money that
amount.
you make back.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the simplest financial strategy that has helped you take control of your finances?
I started the game super young. Like, I used to tell my mom, I'm gonna live home and I'm gonna have an Aston Martin on the driveway, and I'm just gonna chill at home. But I got out of the game very early. Like, I got married early, started my business when I was 24, 25, just married, and we had our first son. So we started with nothing. And when I say that, I say it from a humble perspective, because we had everything, right? But like, I never took a loan, never purchased a book of business, literally started from scratch. Zero. One client at a time. And I'm not sure if I shared this story with you, but I had an internship. I was working in accounting. Till this day, I know partners at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Plant Moran, some of the top accounting firms in the world. When I say I know partners, I'm talking like partners at the highest level. Like, these guys are running the companies, right? To this day, I have them in my phone book. I always had the opportunity to go the public accounting route. But I knew from day one, I would rather build myself for 10, 15 years my way and dedicate 12 to 15 hours to my business as opposed to a corporation, and get to that partner level on my time as opposed to the corporate route. Now, I remember starting off, it's all about opportunity, like I told you. So it's very rare for young professionals to start organically. Usually in my industry, they're buying a book of business from a CPA who's retiring. We didn't do that. We didn't want any baggage. We wanted clients our way, like from the beginning. And I remember starting off, you have a lot of naysayers that would, would just be like, hey, you say you're going to be selective, but when you need the money, you're just going to take on anybody. And I can understand that philosophy. And when you do need the money, sometimes you do got to do what you got to do. But I didn't. I still remained like selective. I said, no, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. Having that type of mentality takes so much time and energy. And I remember getting a phone call. You know, it all starts like that. You just randomly get a phone call.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from a family friend, a family member. And he goes, hey, Khalil, look, I'm having this trouble with my accounting system. Something's not right. I'm bleeding somewhere. And he owned multiple retail businesses. Okay. And he worked for the CPA for 30 plus years. And I remember hearing about this CPA when I was a kid. Like, this guy was the Don, right? And he goes to me, I'm looking for an accountant. And I go, I got the best guy for you. He's like, who? I go, me. He goes, are you done with school? Did you graduate? You got your experience? Do you know my industry? Do you know much about the retail space? I go, I know everything about your industry. And yes, I'm graduated and I just started my own accounting firm. He's like, all right, let's meet on Monday. This is my first client. This is my first opportunity. But you have to have the ability as an entrepreneur to see the opportunity and pull the trigger. Like the ability to make decisions. Like I said earlier, when opportunity comes knocking, you don't open up the door, you bust the door down and you go all in. So on Monday, I met with him and I proposed to him how I'm going to establish this internal accounting system that's going to handle all of the internal controls of your company. We're going to monitor all the dollars coming in and out. We're going to monitor inventory levels, accounts receivable, accounts payable. I'm going to do daily bookkeeping and accounting for you. I'm going to show you these reports. And I blew him away. And to his credit, and I gave him a price, and it was higher than he's ever been proposed. And he gave me that shot. And I love him to this day for it. And he's still a client. When he said, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, I'm like, all right, done. I'm of the belief where you are, like, actions speak louder than words. I can get on this microphone. I can wear my nice suits. I can get in front of a camera. When I'm in these sales meetings with potential clients and they're just looking at me and they're blown away, I'm like, look, if you think like how I'm talking to you is good, is nice, you get a good feeling, you got good vibes, wait till you see the results. Like I tell them, I'm smiling right now as I'm talking to you because I know what's on the other side, you don't. We let our results speak for themselves. So early on, and you're talking, 10, 11 years ago, when he gave me that opportunity, within 2 weeks on the job, I go, hey, I need, like 2012, 2013, 2014. I need 3 years of your sales. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. Because he instinctually had a feeling something was wrong. He was bleeding. And I am of the belief that entrepreneurs know their business better than anybody. The owner knows his business. If he or she feels like something's wrong, a lot of professionals would be like, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. I embrace it. And I say, yeah, why do you feel that way? Like, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, we ask the right questions. We inquire. That's what separates us from everybody else. So when I inquired and I said, hey, give me 3 years of sales history. And I looked at what's happening. And within 2 weeks on the job, I go, boom, bullseye. This is the issue.
You caught it.
I caught it. I caught a $50,000 mistake over 3 years. $50,000 in cash flow. You're talking $4 or $5 grand a month, bleeding, without knowing. When you have high volume in sales and all that. For me, I immediately, I had the evidence. I did this, forensic accounting. Keep in mind, it's my first client. It's my first time doing this, right? I called the CPA's office, and I'm like, hey, this is Khalil. We have a mutual client. And, I uncovered, this issue. I tried to be as polite and professional as possible. Click. They hang up in my face. I'm like, that was weird. Let me call again. I go, hey, I'm not sure the call got disconnected, but this is what and like so upset with me, furious. Keep in mind, I was 24 years old at the time. They've been in the game 30 plus years. And they're like, who the hell is this young kid calling us out on the mistakes that we made? But my approach to them was never, hey, you did this wrong, or hey, haha, I found something.
You're not shoving it in
I'm
their
not
face.
I'm not flexing on them. I'm a professional at all times. I said, hey, we have a mutual client. This is the issue. Let's resolve the issue for the client. This is not for me. This is not for you. This is for our client. Let's solve the issue. Like I said, solutions oriented.
Yeah.
A few minutes later, I get a call back from the CPA, the owner. And he goes to me, Khalil, great catch. We'll write a letter. We'll mail it to the state of Michigan. We'll get the money back and everything will be fine. I go, all right, perfect. That's all I intend, to do. Like, let's just solve the problem, get him his 50 G's back, and we'll be good. A month or so later, that check comes in with like $5,000 extra credit in interest because it's been years. And the client cuts me a check. He goes, hey, this is your bonus for uncovering this. And I go, and I push the check back, and I go, I'm not taking $1. This is what you hired me for. You gave me my shot. And this is why this was the best decision you've ever made. And he's still a client to this day. We have very loyal clients. We have very deep, loyal relationships. You shouldn't be switching relationships with accountants every few years. Like, you want to be with your accountant. As long as they're doing their job and they're delivering results and you're in business, you want to have these 20, 30-year relationships. That CPA ended up telling me, hey, you obviously know what you're doing. Why don't you get your hours from me, right? And in my field, you can only learn. I don't care how many licenses you have. Jaafar, I've interviewed CPAs who have multiple jurisdiction licenses, and they don't meet our level of standards. Right? They were so intimidated by us. So in this case, this CPA who's been in the game for such a long time, someone that I used to hear about when I was a kid, he goes, why don't you come get your hours from me? I remember specifically, he would pay my company. I would work tax seasons in his office. I'd be the first one in, last one out. And this was such a rundown environment, such a negative, toxic place. But while I'm working, I'm learning everything. He's giving me an opportunity. He shared everything with me. He paid my company. He paid my company less than what I was making, but I looked at it as an educational opportunity.
Right.
And I would sit with him. You only can gain this knowledge through experience. So this CPA had 30 plus years of experience. So imagine the resource that he was, and he's giving me this insight, and I'm asking him questions, and I'm doing farm tax returns, and I'm working on estates, and things that you as a young professional will never come across, right? There's times where we have CPAs on our team who've been doing this for 30 plus years, and I tell them, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, how do you come across these opportunities? Like I said, it's all based on your network and your experience. So if you don't come across certain experiences, you're never going to learn. So to his credit, he gave me the opportunity. I learned from him. I got my hours from him. And I left the bad that they did, and I took the good. And that's how we were able to continue to scale. I never bought his book of business. I wasn't interested in it. I wasn't interested in his clients. But from that opportunity that I had, reputation, referrals set fire, and then social media changed the game in 2022. And here we are today. We went from a local practice to a national practice.
What's one value that you hold on to no matter how rich the room gets?
I am of the belief that you have to treat the janitor the same as the CEO. And I hate, like, I get upset when I see certain people who are like, they're not humble. Like, they're successful, good for them, but they're not humble. And which is fine. Like, who cares how they are? Everybody has their own style. But when you treat people, when you belittle people, that's what upsets me, because that person can't defend themselves, right? So, like, one thing that I always hold dear to my heart is treating everybody with respect. Everybody. I don't care what level they're at, what status. Nobody is better than anybody, right? Of course, you may have better traits or habits or decisions that you've made that put you in a specific position in life, but you're not going to belittle people
Right.
for the decisions that they made or the lack of opportunity that they had. So that's something that I hold very close to me, is always treating everybody with respect. It's a golden rule, right? Do unto others as you want done unto you. Very simple.
Right.
Yeah.
How would you, because money is such a powerful thing and people look at it in such high regard. So a man or a woman that don't have much money are not going to look at themselves and in a high regard compared to someone else that is with money. And it's an unfortunate truth. How would you separate self-worth from net worth?
Self-worth is the value that you hold. Like, you have to respect yourself. I always say that you're a stock. And the decisions that you make in life are either going to increase your value or decrease your value. And if you have high self-worth, you're going to make decisions in life that don't hurt you because you have dignity or you value yourself. You love yourself, right? You know yourself. To know God, you have to know yourself, right? So that's self-worth to me. Self-worth is confidence, respect, dignity, devotion, establishing you who you are as an individual, as a human being. This is what self-worth is, right? Net worth is assets minus liabilities. This is material. It's your possessions that you own. It could be a business. It could be real estate. It could be other investment portfolios that you have. These are assets, your cash, jewelry, vehicles, minus your liabilities. The cost of what services the asset.
So a spiritual, very internal evaluation of yourself that has nothing to do with the material world. And I think we have to learn how to separate those, because even if you're not making the big bucks yet, or you're still in the beginning phases, looking down on yourself, because the nature of this world has got us so used to just thinking about the dollars, thinking about the money, that we start attaching that to ourselves. And then when the self-worth and the net worth start colliding, it's only going to take you down, because now you're limiting yourself to the number in your bank app on your phone. You look at the app, be like, the number is low today, I'm low as well.
It's the reason why it's such a struggle is because you can weigh this. You can measure net worth. You can't measure the spiritual side of self-worth. You can't. You don't necessarily see it. So when you see numbers and you see data, I'm going to put a little bit of a business spin on it. If you can't measure the data in and out, you can't have any results. You can't control it. There's so much value in accountability on the self-worth side and on the net worth side. From a net worth perspective, what the successful people do is they measure their numbers on a monthly basis. They review every quarter. They control what they pay in taxes. They make the right investment decisions because of the data, because they measure it. This is their net worth. From a spiritual side, the only metric you can use is how you feel. Like what level are you on? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling down? And if you're feeling good, and if you are content, if you're literally ready to go, because we never know when it's our time, then you have a high self-worth. But I think the balance comes down to, sometimes if you look at it, where if you are smart, if you're a hard worker, if you're dedicated, if you have a good opportunity, and you have this sustenance that was given to you, then maybe you are measured by your ability to make money, right? So like from a high level perspective, if you're so smart, if you're so hardworking, but you're not making money, you have to ask yourself, why? What am I doing wrong? You have to have that humility to reflect and be like, something's not adding up. I'm deficient somewhere. And
if
then
that's your goal.
if that's your goal, and then figure out, but if you think about it, it should be everybody's goal, right? Because that's the reward you're given that you can measure. Because even if you, from a spiritual perspective, we all have living expenses. We all have families. There's expenses. And you could be a monk living in the mountains and detach yourself from reality. But at the end of the day, our nature as human beings is to interact, is to build, is to develop. That's in our nature. Right? So having said that, your ability to make money is also tied to the decisions that you make or the character traits that you have. Because if you are so smart, if you are hardworking, you don't have to chase the money. But if you're building something because you're so, intelligent, the money's going to follow naturally. You're not chasing it. You're building a vessel and it's coming to you. And that's just the law of the universe, of the world.
I want to say the story that you told me right before. I don't know if you'll remember this, but right before I started the podcast, we were sitting down and I asked you, how do you know that when you go into something, when you want to start something new, especially in the beginning phases, because what you just said was, you do something good, the money will follow, but a lot of times the money doesn't follow right away. So you're in this gap where you're really not sure if this is working, and you doubt yourself, and you could self-destruct that way. And I knew in the media space, that's how it works, and it takes time to build an audience. So I asked you, how would you know if something is working or not if there's no monetary gain? And you said, you'll know. There'll be signs, and it's like kind of the instinct, that feeling that you have, like, what's it showing you? And here we are.
That's the truth. It's instinctual. It's in your DNA. It's in your fabric. If you simply say, what product or service can I provide society that will benefit them? The more people you serve, the more people you help, the more people you sell your product or service to, the more rewarded you're going to be. That's literally what it comes down to. That's the key. Now, the capability or your level of success is dependent on how much stress or pressure that you can handle, because it's a challenge. And right at that breaking point where you feel like, man, this is not working, psychologically, that's when you're actually at a climax. And that the success is literally, if you just continue to push a little bit further, is right behind that point. Right? But remember, it has to be an opportunity that is scalable. It has to be a product or service that is scalable. There has to be a benefit win-win situation. It's never about win-lose, right? There has to be long-term strategy and thinking. From my perspective, you're guaranteed two things in life: death and taxes. Whether you're making money or losing money, you're going to have to pay taxes or report your taxes to the government. My decision was, all right, well, we're going to target business owners, and we're going to provide them with a service so they understand their financials every month. They know their numbers. Imagine you as a business owner. Business is hard enough to run as is. Add the accounting and tax compliance element to it. Add qualifying for lending to it. How are you going to navigate that?
Right.
The wrong advisor will hurt you, will cost you so much money in taxes, and you don't know. You just deal on, it's just a trust. They're the professional. You're going to listen to what they say. But from my perspective, I'm like, we're going to tap into a market. We're going to serve the small business owner, and we're going to target business owners between $500,000 to $50+ million. Like, that's what we want, right? Because they all need that service. And it's providing them with their data, their numbers, making decisions, telling them where the money's going, how to reduce their tax liability. And we can measure it. These are metrics. We can make decisions. And then we only pay what we have to in taxes. That's the philosophy. Look at how wasteful the government is with your money. Doge was created to talk about how wasteful it is. And now you have all these politicians laughing about how previous administrations or the government spent the money. You as a business owner, you as a citizen, what drives business owners, what motivates them is the ability to determine how much they want to pay. People work hard for their money. And to give up 30-40% of your money,
That's a lot.
like, so if you look at it from an easy number, you're making $1 million a year. Should you be punished because you're making a lot of money? Because you worked hard, you had a great concept, you provided a product or service to society? Should you be punished for that? Like,
Provided
how's that fair?
jobs.
How's that? You provided jobs, you provided housing. How's that fair? That individual has to pay $400,000 to $500,000 in taxes, and now they're left with $500,000. What's the point?
Yeah.
Why? That's why you have so many people taking advantage of the government. They're like, I'm good. I don't need to make that type of money. I'll live off the government, right? But that's the poison. That's the drug they want you on. But the point is, look at how they're spending your money. They're spending it on war. They're spending it on things that you probably don't even believe in. It's pure waste. But it's the law to pay taxes. But you as a business owner can determine, all right, that's fair. Here's how much I'm willing to pay by following the law, by following the tax code. If that's not freedom, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
Whereas an individual who's a W-2 earner, the government is telling your employer, hey, before you pay this worker, this employee of yours, you're going to withhold their taxes and you're going to pay it to me because I don't trust that employee to pay their own taxes. So if you're an employee and you're a W-2, your employer is withholding your taxes, paying it to the government, and then saying, here's your fair share. That's why you have less income per paycheck, right? Your money has already been taxed. But if you're a business owner, your money hasn't been taxed. So the money that you're getting paid, your sales, has not been taxed. And the government and the tax code is saying, after your products that you purchased, your cost of goods sold, after your advertising, your automobile, your business licensing, your contract labor, your charitable contributions, your equipment rental, your repairs and maintenance, your insurance, your payroll, your rents, your repairs, your utilities, now you have a net income. You pay tax on the net income. So as a business owner, you're like, I get to spend the money how I want to. And the government's allowing me to reinvest my profits into my business the way that I want to scale my business, and then I only pay tax on what's left. That's a fair deal.
Yeah.
I'll take that all day.
Right.
And why are they letting you do that? Because you're providing jobs, you're providing products and services to the society, and you're providing housing. So they're saying you're taking on this risk and this responsibility, and you're taking this burden away from us as the government. Because if you're not doing it in this society, then we would have to do it as a government. That's why business owners are rewarded. That's why they have more flexibility and freedom to make these types of decisions. And that's why I am a firm believer that if you want to be in the 1%, you want to be an entrepreneur one day, you want to be an investor, it's so important to establish these psychological habits first, supported by work ethic, supported by long-term thinking and strategy, and actual practical advice and results. And if you do that, if you implement that, you'll go from the 99% to the 1%.
And I think that's a perfect way to kind of bring everything back together and wrap this up. And I really think that after this conversation, a lot of people are going to look themselves in the mirror and be like, it's time to make a move. You know, it's time to change.
Thank you so much. And if I could leave one simple piece of advice for people to take away, because you and I, we're doing this, we're spending our time, we're doing this to give back. We're doing this for people to walk away confidently with steps, to look at themselves in the mirror and say, this is practical advice that I can implement, and I'm capable of doing this. And I promise you, if more individuals looked at themselves, when I connect with people in public and they come up to me and they always talk to me about, you know, they're studying accounting, or they love my videos, or they're inspired or motivated, I want them to go further than that. I don't want it just to be about motivation, right? The only scientifically proven way to stay motivated is to achieve results. Micro tasks being checked off the list. So if you are an individual, you have a job, you don't have to leave everything and just go into business. But study the game, study the side hustle, question yourself, reflect, what am I passionate about? How can I make more? What can I invest in? Can I afford real estate? How can I maximize my minimize the tax dollars or tax exposure that I have? And if you look at it from that perspective, I do feel and I do want people to understand that they can do this. We are all the same. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. The difference is, are you willing to put in the time? And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.